points of greatest danger are the Baltic states, especially Latvia and Lithuania.
President Bush Tuesday reiterated U.S. support for the Baltics' autonomy.
Let you know, as you all know, we have not ever recognized the forcible incorporation of the Baltic states into the Soviet Union.
The fight for independence in the Baltics is long-standing, rooted in a lengthy history of strife and ethnic tensions. A country of 3.6 million, Lithuania was part of Poland for more than 200 years. It was conquered by Russia in the late 18th century, then enjoyed a brief independence between World Wars I and II before it was annexed by the Soviet Union in 1940. Latvia, too, was independent between the wars until the Soviet Union assumed control. Fully 1/3 of its 2.6 million population is Russian, and it's been under Russian rule on and off since the turn of the 18th century. Estonia, the northernmost Baltic, is also the smallest, with a population of 1.5 million. A heavily Protestant country, its Russian minority is about 30%. Part of the Russian Empire from 1817, Estonia gained its independence in 1918 until being annexed by the Soviet Union, again there in 1940. In the wake of the Gorbachev coup, all three Baltic states are preparing to convene governments in exile. Lennart Meri is the foreign minister of Estonia. This morning he's in Helsinki, Finland. Mr. Minister, good morning.
Good morning.
How would you assess the situation in your homeland at this hour and the extent of opposition?
Well, we have just some disturbing news. During this night, the Estonian television center was stormed by Soviet armed forces, and as usual, the local commander of the Soviet forces pretended that he has not given the order, that he even does not know he who has given the order. But that's only the general background. In Estonia, everything is calm under the control of the Estonian government.
Confirmed that the political end of the emergency committee, the so-called Gang of Eight, have been arrested, have been detained while trying to flee, while trying to get to Vnukovo airport and supposedly get out of the country. But we caution that we have been warned by some criminologists that the generals who were the military muscle behind the political end of the takeover continue to remain in control of the Soviet armed forces to the extent that is possible within the city limits. But the president said that Boris Yeltsin told him that Spetsnaz forces were still loyal to Yazov. And I will explain to you that Spetsnaz are the very special army commandos, roughly 15,000 in number. The Spetsnaz forces were those who led the invasion of Afghanistan, who overtook Kabul, alleged to have assassinated the Afghani president. They are very tough troops. They answer only to Yazov, sort of his personal guard, if you will. And those troops are still, according to Yeltsin's conversation with President Bush, are still out and about. And there was another word from Yeltsin to President Bush that in the Baltic states there were still troop movements, and there were still troops around who have not yielded like these Soviet tanks. The tanks you're seeing here come from a tank division based in Moscow, just outside Moscow, and there are two other divisions that retreated today. The Taman division, which is a show guard.
Tonight, New Jersey families with ties to the Baltic regions are expressing great relief. Ben Farnsworth reports.
They want freedom so much and independence they could taste it. When I was there 2 years ago, that's all they talked about. They were just so happy that they saw the light at the end of the tunnel.
Loretta Stukas has relatives in Lithuania, and she is very worried about them. The phone lines have been Soviet hardliners has failed. He knows that relatives in their Baltic homeland face the promise of freedom.
And that can mean only that Boris Yeltsin and his forces will be stronger, and that would help out the republics as well, including Latvia.
It's very promising, and naturally they can look forward, for a better life.
Although these New Jersey families are halfway around the world from the turmoil in the Soviet Union, every shot that is fired thousands of miles away is heard in their homes. Loretta and her husband, Professor Jack Stukas, produce a weekly Lithuanian radio program for WSOU, Seton Hall's radio station. He watched the president's news conference soon after Gorbachev was ousted and didn't like Mr. Bush's response to a question about U.S. recognition of the Baltic states' independence.
We have not ever recognized the forcible incorporation of the Baltic states into the Soviet Union. And that's where that matter is right now. But we are not giving up on the restoration of constitutional government in the Soviet Union itself. And so we'll leave that matter right there.
He could have said, look, the Russians, hands off the Baltic states. We recognize them for 50 years. Hands off, we want the freedom for them now.
But 24 hours later, after the so-called emergency committee exited the Kremlin, both families knew what a difference a day makes.
Very good that the Russians are going to, looks like they're on the road to achieving democracy. And Lithuania has achieved democracy, but not freedom.
I feel I'm much more happier than yesterday. At least I see that the democratic forces are gaining upper hand, you know, and I'm very happy in that respect.
What about your family in Latvia?
Well, we have no contact right now. They are living their own lives. They have their own security.